everybody talks about their better half, she was also the better looking half. You have to settle for me. Sandy was my wife, my best friend, my travel companion, the mother of our 4 children. She was my barber for most of those 40 years, well, 30 years. After I left the Army, she started cutting my hair. Before then, she said, you can go to a barber for what they do, because of how short it had to be. But she was a landscaper. When we got married, we had a 3-year honeymoon in Germany, compliments to the U.S. Army, because I had re-enlisted to get out of Fort Polk, Louisiana. That's what got me out of Texas. I won the national lottery for 2 years, some clothing and some food, provided, and all those wonderful things at Fort Polk. But that was God's way of bringing Sandy and I together. My graduating class in San Antonio was 562, and her graduating class of Grant, Louisiana was 18. I grew up in a Southern Baptist home, and I'm talking, we were hard-shell Southern Baptists. The other Baptists weren't quite right. After this were iffy. Catholics, I'm sorry, Kathy, but my mom would not let me date a Catholic girl because my kids would have to be Catholic. And
she wouldn't allow that.
That was not allowable. So I grew up in a different world in San Antonio. Sandy grew up in a different world. She was raised in the Primitive Baptist Church in Kentucky and got down to Louisiana and was raised in a Pentecostal church. And she was twixt and tween with the Trinity and the one God, and had never gotten saved, and I couldn't marry her because she was church, but she wasn't Christian. God worked that out. Our first date, we went down to Milldale, Louisiana, near Baton Rouge. The first day we were there, Brother Sonny Holland preached a sermon. She was out of the aisle, down the aisle, and got saved. Went back to her Pentecostal church, said I got saved. He baptized her, and we started our life together. We got married 7 weeks later. But I had known her for 10 months before we got our first date. And so she was part and parcel of my life. The scripture talks about the husband shall leave his family, the two shall become one. He cleaves to his wife. The two become one. Where's the scripture that says what happens to the half that's left behind? God said, I've got a job for you, son. So, I'm here to talk about Sandy. She loved gardening. She was our landscaper. For ovarian cancer, so I brought a couple plants, a couple aloe plants for somebody. Kathy's gonna work that out. And you may think this is a century plant, but this thing from Texas is a blue agave. You grow it long enough, you can distill it and make tequila. So those are staying here. The pelvic ultrasound, instead of the jelly on the belly, the pelvic ultrasound can find a tumor the size of a Mardi Gras bead. So it's very good for spotting that. Underutilized. I don't want to show of hands, but I would wager less than half the women in here have had one pelvic exam in their lifetime. They're not common. They're not invasive. There's no surgery required. It's not a great expensive tool like a CT scan. It's not standard practice to do one for women, but it's very effective. But women don't know that they're not being tested. They think, well, I went to the doctor, I had my mammogram, I had my pap smear, and Susie called from the doctor's office and said, this is Susie, your pap smear is normal, I'll see you in 2 years. So she thinks, well, I wonder that, she doesn't have to worry about cervical cancer. What she didn't say is, you weren't tested for ovarian, fallopian, uterine, endometrial, vulvar, vaginal, and one other. Cervical only. For the women 11 to 13 at the right age in the past few years, past 2 decades, the HPV vaccine is given at 11 to 13, now it's given to the boys too, because the human papillomavirus is the #1 trigger for cervical cancer. The woman got the shot when she was 11, 13, won't get human papillomavirus, 95% chance she will never have cervical cancer because only 5% comes from some other reason. That's why they give the HPV vaccine. It's effective, it works, it's been proven. It's a true vaccine. It's a great advance. Before they came out with the pap smear, the cervical cancer was the #4 cause of death among cancers for women. Because of the pap smear, early detection meant that more of those women were saved, and hence ovarian cancer is now #4, and cervical cancer is up to #7 now. Now I'm going to surprise you. Few of you women know your grandmother could not get a pap smear. This is the aggravating part. Dr. Papanikolaou from Greece, a young doctor, was old school doctor. You put it under the slide and you looked at it. So he studied things. He went to Germany, practiced, studied, learned more, came to the United States, studied, learned more, became a pathologist, and in 1928 he addressed a crowd of doctors and said, I found by taking a swab from the cervix, put it in a petri dish, let it grow, put it under a slide, that cell is diseased. He was spotting cervical cancer before the woman was symptomatic. Great advance. You could hear a pin drop, nothing. 1941, he worked with Dr. Truant. They write a paper. They published this paper to go to doctors all over the English-speaking world. Silence. Hear the pin drop. Nothing happened. 1952, a group of doctors came together and said, we're losing patients to cervical cancer. This guy says it works. Let's test it. So doctors all across the United States started the patient testing in their clinic, in their hospital, in their office, in their private practice. They formed PAPS crew, forced the FDA, they approved the study, boom, boom, boom. In the 1950s, they adopted the pap smear, and cervical cancer started going down. 2022, we still do not have a study on the threshold of coming up with a test for ovarian cancer. So here's the horrible number. Imagine 6 feet tall, a big 7 and a big 0. 70% of ovarian cancers are found too late. With all the advances of the 22,000 women that will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2022, 14,000 plus will lose their battle because it was found too late. I'm so thankful to have some young college-age students here. Where'd my picture go? Lexi Holland, beautiful, precious young woman. I never got to meet her in life. I was in the foyer at her church helping her mother and grandmother with the Teal table. Better. Young lady going to Southern University in Baton Rouge, studying criminal justice. January of her junior year, she goes to the doctor, she says, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. She's in Baton Rouge where they have a medical center. She's not in Fayette, she's not in Lake Charles. She's in Baton Rouge. They've got all the specialists. 6 months later, she's diagnosed. It's stage 3C. This is a small, young lady. She was 20 when she went to the doctor in January. July when she was diagnosed, she was 21. September, 14 months later, she lost her battle. 22 years young because it was found too late. Let's go back to our generation. Gilda Radner, great comedian. Back when Saturday Night Live did comedy, they knew how to do comedy. Took her 2 years to be diagnosed with ovarian cancer back then. Took 2 years of treatment before she lost her battle. The last thing they got was a wonder drug called carboplatin. Carboplatin is the #1 drug of choice Now, for ovarian cancer, the difference was she got it as a single drug, and now they pair it with Taxol or some other drug, depending on the type of ovarian cancer. 30 different types, remember. So her wish was that they would find a way, to find it sooner, to treat it better. Well, now it's only 6 to 12 months to diagnosis instead of 24 months. 6 to 12 is the average. And that's why 6 months for her, Lexi Holland, was too late. By the way, I have one of these bookmarks for everybody. Pink and teal ribbon to tie the two together. I have books, if anybody wants to look. 100 questions and answers. I haven't looked at it lately. I could probably answer about 80 of them. Because so that I could do an adequate job, I've had to learn more about this beast. It's a nasty street fighter. You hear women having breast cancer, they beat it, they get on with their life. Recent lady I talked to, she's on her 9th battle with ovarian cancer. This is a dirty street fighter that doesn't like to lose, and it has one of the highest recurral rates of any cancer, of male or female cancer. The 50% of women that beat it once, it comes back. And some have to beat it 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. The lady that is on her 9th round, she said she never got more than 3 months off before the next recurrence. We're talking a young lady under 40. Okay? Now, another hard statistic like the 70% found too late. No woman is too young or too old. Kenny, or McKenna, was diagnosed at 18. Well, 22, 18, that's not a big gap, is it? What have I told you? Hers was 18 months. Pardon me. 18 months young. There's 30 different types. She had egg sac ovarian cancer. Before she was born, every egg that she'll drop in her lifetime was already present. Ovarian cancer doesn't care that she's not had her first woman's day yet. 18 months young. At age 3, she had beat it. She's NED. She's now 5 years young. She's a happy child. Her life is a normal life because they found it quick enough. I don't think anybody's gonna ever be able to convince you that doesn't happen to someone who's not a woman yet. Now that you've seen her picture, you can go on YouTube, Kenny, K-E-N-N-I, K-E-N-N-I. Put in ovarian cancer, you will see her story. I have note cards in my pocket. I no longer need the note cards. These are real people to me, not just statistics. Hannah Catton, H-A-N-N-A-H, Catton, like cotton but with an A. 9 doctors. The first 8 told her, you have too much stress in your life. If you would just de-stress. You've got too many club activities, college courses, final exams. You need to find a way. Your garden club, maybe you gotta put it on hold. You've gotta de-stress. 8 doctors in a row told her to de-stress. Her life, her 13 times a year cycle would regulate itself. Doctor number 9 said, I don't know, let's check something. Step up here on the scale. You're how tall? Your BMI, your body mass index, says you're overweight. I know you're only wearing size 10 clothing, but if you just lost weight, it'd straighten itself out. You'll be fine. Doctor number 10, now I forgot to tell you, she was living in England, she moved to Australia. So these doctors are under the National Health Insurance. National Health Insurance says, but on the back of the card it'll tell you, They can run a CA-125, one of the most unreliable tests of all the cancer tests, because this lady has ovarian cancer and it shows negative. This lady doesn't have it and it shows positive. So my wife's oncologist said, well, her CA-125 is elevated, it's 127, but I can't go based on that. It's unreliable. A lot of doctors won't even give the test until you say, you're gonna give it or I'm gonna go get a second opinion from someone else. So eventually they'll break down and they'll give it. These are people that want women to be warned because the medical community, and it may not be a problem here, by and large, it's the grandmother's cancer. We don't see this in young girls. The grandmother's cancer, over 55, postmenopausal. So we're just gonna ignore all those young, healthy women that have symptoms. 80% of the time, it's dismissed when the woman goes in talking about the beat symptoms. And guess what? I don't need the cup, I don't need the card to tell you the B is for bloating that's persistent 14 or more days a month. E is for eating and feeling full too soon. You had your salad, you got no room for your entree. A for abdominal pain that may present as lower back pain, either because of the tumor or the fluid that's building up in there. 30 different types, they don't all present a tumor. 90% are epithelial, growing on the outside of the ovary. Only 10% are attacking the inside. But there's no screening because the ovaries and fallopian tubes are sitting up on top of the uterus. There's no easy peasy passage. Okay? It's not like looking through the ear. It's not like getting a speculum and running the pap smear. It takes an effort, and they gotta have a darn good excuse before they're gonna do it. And they don't. For breast cancer, back in your grandmother's day, no mammogram. Now mammogram, 2D imaging, 3D imaging, thermal scans, biopsy by needle with a laser, a scan guiding them. They can take samples from 5 lymph nodes surrounding the lump and the lump to see if it's escaped, to determine what type it is. And all that without needing a stitch. If those 5 don't help, you've got the monthly self-exam once every 30 days, horizontal in your bed, vertical in the shower. Christina Applegate, not 40, not entitled to an annual mammogram. She found hers, went to the doctor, he confirmed it, she got her surgery. She's fine, because she didn't wait for 40, telling, who's the parliamentarian here? You're not entitled to a mammogram until you're 40. She didn't wait. She found it. She saved her life. There's nobody telling women ovarian cancer doesn't care what age you are. So there's a risk. It's very real. 70% terminal from the day it's found. And another harsh fact, the day they hear, I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Boudreaux, it's ovarian cancer. 1 in 4 women will not have 12 months left. My wife, I was her caregiver at home. Because I sell ink pens and calendars, I could sit at home and make a phone call, take a phone call, write up an order, feed her, mow the yard, do the laundry, whatever. I was her caregiver for a whole 7 weeks, 2 of which she was in the hospital. 7 weeks she was in the bed or in her recliner. 7 weeks that she could no longer garden or landscape. Diagnosed on a Monday. After the doctor said on Saturday, her CA-125 is elevated, but I can't go on that. I need the PET scan. Well, it was done Thursday. Monday he got the PET scan. Monday he walks in. It's ovarian cancer. She got hot spot on both lungs, hot spot on both ovaries, hot spot on her liver. It's on her abdominal wall. I'll put the PICC line tonight. We'll do the chemo tomorrow. We'll do 6 rounds. Every 3 weeks we'll do another 2 rounds. Halfway through we'll look, see how it's working, see if we need to change anything, see if we need to do surgery. That was Monday. Friday morning, 5 o'clock. Doctor never made it for round. She was gone. 60 hours after her first round of chemo. 70% found too late. 1 in 4 doesn't get 12 months. Sandy and I got the short end of the stick. And God said, I got a job for you, son. You're going to be talking to ladies about the lady parts. Maybe for the rest of my life, I'll be talking about the lady parts. Because I lost mine when I lost Sandy. Protect your lady parts.